Yo, Yiggy, welcome back to Influence Wars, where we expose who is fighting to own your attention online, how they stand to benefit, and how you can remain digitally sober. I'm your host, Anti-Prophet, and today's topic is Tulsi Gabbard. So Tulsi just got on camera and said she's officially classifying a sitting U.S. senator as a domestic threat. Yeah, this is huge if you are in MAGA camp. Like, this is Christmas morning, and this is proof that the deep state is finally getting called out. However, if you're on the middle side of the political spectrum or on the left side, this feels like one of those oh no moments where democracy just took another body blow. Either way, this is not normal, and it's got people online spiraling in every direction. So with all that said, let's take a look at the clip.
The mob that stormed the Capitol on January 6th to try to stop Congress from carrying out its constitutional responsibilities were behaving like domestic enemies of our country. But let's be clear. The John Brennans, Adam Schiffs, and the oligarchs in big tech who are trying to undermine our constitutionally protected rights and turn our country into a police state with KGB-style surveillance are also domestic enemies, and much more powerful and therefore dangerous than the mob that stormed the Capitol. Now, John Brennan said,
"So I know looking forward that the members of the Biden team who have been nominated or have been appointed are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas, where they germinate in different parts of the country and they gain strength, and it brings together an unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, even libertarians."
Now, President Biden, I call upon you and all members of Congress from both parties to denounce these efforts by the likes of Brennan and others to take away our civil liberties that are endowed to us by our Creator and guaranteed in our Constitution. If you don't stand up to these people now, then our country will be in great peril.
All right, so take a second. How did that clip hit you? Are you confused? Are you fired up? Maybe you even feel a little bit vindicated as a result of watching that. Like, there's no wrong reaction here. What you got to remember is whatever you're feeling as a result of watching that video is exactly the point of that video. That video wasn't just posted for fun. It was crafted to pull that emotion out of you because someone somewhere benefits from you feeling that way. Now, this video in particular is interesting because if you look closely, something's a little bit off. The person who reposted it claimed that Tulsi Gabbard had just declared Adam Schiff a domestic enemy of the United States. But in the actual clip, she's calling on President Biden to take action. Now, anyone with more than 2 brain cells could tell that this video is over a year old. That's why she's talking to President Biden in the video. This repost account simply dug up this video, slapped on a misleading caption, and pushed a narrative tailor-made for their audience. The kind of audience that's hungry for anything that feeds the fantasy that Trump is going to drain the swamp, take down the globalists, and purge the establishment. Now remember, truth doesn't really matter here. What matters is dopamine. That is why this recycled clip racked over 1.1 million views in under 48 hours, even though it doesn't even make sense in the current context of Trump being president. And the thing you got to remember here is that people on social media who put content in front of you always have an ulterior motive. In the case of the video we just watched, there are 3 primary parties we need to take a look at. Party 1 is Tulsi Gabbard. Party 2 is the repost account called Real Robert. And Party 3 is regular everyday citizens who consume political content on X, which may sound a little bit strange, but stick with me and it'll make sense. Now, Tulsi is not your average talking head. She's not just floating through the algorithm for the sake of discourse. She is deeply strategic, and she has spent years shaping herself into something that can survive and thrive inside of the modern attention economy. And to her credit, she has done this remarkably well. As of right now, Tulsi Gabbard has 9.1 million followers across all of her social media platforms. That is not a coincidence. That is not a fluke. That is the result of someone who understood early, very early in fact, that if she wanted political relevance and power, it wasn't going to come through the traditional systems. You have to remember, Tulsi ran for president as a Democrat, and the party rejected her hard. She was never going to get a foothold inside of the DNC establishment. So what did she do? She built an enormous social media following, not just to have influence, but to stay in the game. Because once you're out of political office, you're out of the news cycle, and you don't have the infrastructure of the party behind you. And that means the only thing left that can keep your name in people's mouths and in their minds is your personal brand. And Tulsi didn't just build a personal brand, she built a media entity around herself. That brand serves three primary purposes. The first is it keeps her relevant in the cultural lexicon of American politics. And this matters. Attention is power at the end of the day. And if you're not trending, if people aren't reposting your clips or re-quoting your tweets, you are invisible. But if people are arguing about you, even if they hate you, you are in the room and you're taking up real estate in their minds. And my brother in Christ, Tulsi, wants to be in the room. Now, the second reason is her brand is monetizable. She's not just posting to stay visible. She's selling via this brand. Most notably, her book, which she released last year. When you have over 9 million followers, you do not need to do a book tour. You don't need to rely on the New York Times or CNN to plug your book. You just post about it. You convert your own audience. And because that audience is loyal and large and highly engaged, those posts don't just get likes, they get sales. And we're talking real numbers here. Numbers that most authors would literally kill for. So the brand then becomes the funnel. The attention becomes cash. Now, the third reason, and the most important reason, Tulsi uses her personal brand as political capital. Because in the new era of politics, especially inside the MAGA orbit, the traditional resume doesn't matter. What matters instead is whether people know who you are and whether you can move people online. Trump himself proved this. Elon Musk has followed the same exact playbook, and Tulsi, smartly, aligned herself with both of these characters. And again, these are not accidents. These are calculated partnerships, because in this era, you don't get into positions of power by climbing the ladder. You get there by bringing your own audience to the table. And if you need even further proof of this, look at Pete Hegseth. This guy didn't get a spot at the table as the Secretary of Defense because he was the most qualified candidate. He got it because he had a strong personal brand that he built as a result of hosting Fox and Friends. And as a result of that gig, he built a loyal following and he knew how to keep attention on himself. That right there is the new currency in our political age. And Tulsi knows this as well. And that's why she didn't just switch parties from Democrat to Republican. She switched strategies. She learned to play the MAGA game. She knew that if she wanted a seat in Trump's cabinet or even a shot at influence in the post-Trump conservative world, she would need to show up with an audience, and a loyal one at that. And again, she's done that. The result is a machine that keeps her name circulating, her product selling, and it keeps her relevant politically. But that's not the whole story, because Tulsi isn't the only one pulling the strings here. Now that we've covered the last party, let's take a closer look at the next party that benefits, which is the account that reposted this old video of Tulsi Gabbard and made it go viral again. Now, the name of this account on X is called Real Robert. And on the surface, this just looks like another politically charged poster tossing red meat into the MAGA algorithm. But for a second, let's slow down and actually walk through what we know, and more importantly, what we don't know about this character. First, let's talk identity. Who is Real Robert? The truth is, we have no idea who this is. There is a profile picture, but if you do a reverse image search on that photo, nothing comes up. You can type in Real Rob on Google. Again, nothing comes up. This guy doesn't have an actual name listed anywhere, and his URL on his channel, which is Journalism is Dead, is broken. There's no blog, there's no YouTube, no Telegram channel, no Substack. There's literally nothing about this guy on any platform. He only exists on X. Now, that in and of itself is a bit of a red flag, because in the digital landscape where even the most amateur creators are syndicating their content across platforms, when someone's entire digital existence is confined to a single app, especially an app like X that rewards outrage, decontextualized media, and virality, it raises a fundamental question. Why is this dude here? Now, if you're thinking to yourself, anti-prophet, maybe it's just some guy trying to blow off steam, let's take a look at his behavior just a little bit closer than we're doing right now. In the last 24 hours, Real Robert only posted 10 times, and most of those were reposts. They're not even original uploads with actual commentary that he himself wrote. Like literally, these are just lazy reposts, often from known MAGA meme accounts. And the few times he does post a video himself, it's always framed in the most inflammatory way possible. just like the video we just watched from Tulsi Gabbard. Like, that video had a caption that implied that she's speaking in her current role as Director of National Intelligence when she wasn't even in that role when the video was filmed. So what do all of these snippets tell us about Real Robert on X? The thing I can say here is this is not a coordinated content farm. This isn't a team. This isn't a sponsored campaign with scheduling software and automation behind the scenes. This is one guy. And based on the output and quality, it's not even a particularly smart guy. He's not creating a funnel. He's not monetizing anything. He's not even trying to build a brand. There's no newsletter, no course, no coaching program, no political campaign, no merch, literally nothing to sell. And, I've said this before, right? But it's worth repeating. Rage bait influencers are some of the least talented business people on the internet because they have no idea how to monetize attention. All they know is how to post something that gets likes, that gets people a dopamine hit, and they simply hope it brings in a few $1,000s in X ad revenue at the end of the month, which is likely what is going on here. Real Robert has just figured out that if he cherry picks clips that play into the emotional expectations of a MAGA-leaning audience, especially ones that make it look like someone powerful is finally saying the quiet part out loud, he can keep just enough engagement to pay his rent. But let's be real. This is digital gig work. It is lazy, it's low lift, and it's optimized for maximum outrage with minimum effort. However, for this particular clip, I actually think the most interesting party to look at, or parties, I should say, is what's happening in the comments section. For example, there's a guy in the comments named Kendon Curtis, and this video, which anyone with more than 2 brain cells can tell is total bullshit because, again, she's posting this a year before she was in public office for Trump. This video prompted Kendon to go out of his way to write a comment that's literally like 700 or 800 words long. And the main thing that sets him off in the video, it has nothing to do with Joe Biden or anything related to Adam Schiff. No, the thing that pisses him off is that Tulsi used the phrase storm the Capitol. This is what made Kendon so incredibly angry. And he writes here, the people who went to the Capitol didn't go there to storm the Capitol while walking calmly between the velvet ropes. They went to the Capitol unarmed to exercise their constitutional rights and to petition their government with grievances, especially over the most sacred right we have, which is our vote count. So nobody stormed anything. Those peaceful protesters were gaslit by flashbangs and tear gas canisters our government used in violation of crowd control standards. He goes on and on saying we've spent millions studying the effects of gaslighting protesters, though I don't think he knows what gaslighting actually means here, and insists that it wasn't accidental. Then he launches from here into a whole diatribe about January 6th and how the defendants were innocent and how one of the defendants happens to be his nephew, Charlie Donahoe. Now, the reason I bring up this comment and comments like this is because when you go to Kendon's profile, it's clear that this guy is just a regular guy who's deeply passionate about MAGA politics. In his bio, he says that he's owned an A1XL tree service for 30 years, is now retired, he's now doing God's work and paying attention to politics. This right here is not the kind of bio you would expect from a Russian bot. But it's also very clear that in retirement, this guy literally spends all day on X, reposting video after video in support of Donald Trump, hating on Muslims, hating on liberals, and more than anything here, I think that's just a really sad reflection of where a huge portion of the US population is at right now, psychologically. Because if you're a retired man who owned a tree business for 30 years and you're now spending your entire retired life on X, because again, he's posting like 10, 15 times a day, something is missing from your life. People with strong relationships with their spouse, with their kids, with their neighbors, people with good physical health, with a grounded relationship to themselves and their deep core inner being, they don't live online. They have other things to do. They're out living life. But so many people in America don't have that. Their mental health is on totally shaky ground because they're not making enough money. Their relationships are a disaster. Their physical health is declining. They're not sleeping. They're partying. They're eating junk food. And all of that blocks them from having a deeper connection to who they are in their psyche. And when that is missing, it makes them ultra susceptible to propaganda like you see here. And I know the word propaganda is thrown around a lot here, but the thing to keep in mind is that propaganda doesn't target people with strong psychic defenses. It targets people who are vulnerable. It says, don't think for yourself. It says, don't use all of your faculties to the greatest degree that you can. Don't analyze. Just believe. Let me give you a cohesive worldview so you don't have to wrestle with how complicated reality actually is. And once someone gives into that, they don't care if the propaganda contradicts itself from one day to the next. They don't care if they're watching a Tulsi Gabbard clip from over a year ago that's being recontextualized to manipulate MAGA voters. They have outsourced their thinking. And worse, they take that propaganda and run even further with it, writing 800-word essays in the comments of these videos about how the content didn't align perfectly with their worldview about January 6th. This right here, more than anything else, is why digital sobriety is so important. It's not about turning off social media altogether. That's unrealistic. But it is about building up the parts of your life that matter: your finances, your relationships, your mental and physical health, your connection to your inner soul, so that you become sober from the nonsense on social media. Because think about it. This guy spent 15 to 20 minutes writing an essay about how nothing bad actually happened on January 6th on a video that doesn't even make sense in the way that it's being presented. Imagine if Kendon put that same energy towards improving the things that actually matter in his life, his relationships, his health, his internal peace. Would his life be better or worse? And I know some of you will say, hey, anti-prophet, you don't know. Maybe his life is actually perfect. Maybe he just enjoys engaging with MAGA content. And to that, I would say this: if his life really was that good, he wouldn't be spending all day online trying to win imaginary battles in a digital war that is being manufactured by people like Real Robert, who can't find anything else to do in life that will pay them money except post rage bait content online. Because based on how much time Kendon Curtis spends on X, it's pretty safe to say this dude is completely addicted to social media, and more specifically to the algorithm. And what people always forget is this: the algorithm gives you exactly what it knows you want. It is designed to hold your attention by learning your behavior and mirroring it back to you, consciously and unconsciously. That is what makes it such a powerful tool for both the collective unconscious and for personal shadow work, because it doesn't just reflect your taste, it reflects your psyche. So when you look at the stuff Kendon Curtis is engaging with, commenting on, reposting, obsessing over, you're looking at a perfect mirror of what his unconscious mind is consumed by. Things like the Muslim invasion of the West, the idea of a Jewish cabal of bankers running the US and every country, controlling banks, releasing bioweapons, and trying to enslave the population. These are the things that he focuses on. So again, here's the question. If this is what his algorithm looks like, if this is what his unconscious mind is focused on 24/7, is this the behavior of a happy and fulfilled man? Or is this someone nearing the end of his life with anxiety, feeling like he's forgotten by society, worried that the world will move on without him? I think it's the latter. Now, more importantly than anything else we've talked about in this video, if any part of you sees yourself in Kendon Curtis, not in his beliefs, but in the way that he uses social media, you have to ask yourself the same thing. Do you like what the algorithm is showing you about yourself? Because the algorithm is only ever giving you what your unconscious mind wants before your conscious mind is even aware that it wants it. That is how it keeps you hooked. That is how it keeps you scrolling. That is how it sells you more ads so that it can make more money. So if you don't like what your unconscious mind is attracting into your feed, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to fight for digital sobriety? That right there is the question to ask. And if you want to take this question even deeper to see just how far down the rabbit hole goes, then click on this video right here.